"Excuse me," a voice whispered from right behind me. I turned around to an older woman with short, gray hair and glasses. "That person behind you," she said. "They've been following you down every single aisle." I casually glanced over my shoulder. Sure enough, a tall guy with dark hair, wearing a blue jacket just like she described, was standing about 3 people back, staring down at his phone. I asked if she was certain, and she confirmed she'd watched him trail me from electronics to home goods, and now to the book section, always keeping the same distance. I thanked her for the heads up, trying to play it cool while I scanned the store for a security guard. At the checkout, I paid as fast as I could, keeping one eye on the guy in the blue jacket. He just stayed in line, not even looking my way anymore. Maybe the woman was mistaken. Still, I rushed out to the parking lot and loaded my groceries faster than I ever have. On the drive home, my eyes were glued to the rearview mirror. No blue jacket. It was just my imagination running wild. I pulled into my apartment complex and only grabbed the essentials: milk, eggs, and bread, deciding to leave the rest for later. Just as I was unlocking my door, my phone rang. It was Nathaniel, my ex from college, calling after 3 years of complete silence. When I picked up, he said he really needed to talk and asked if we could meet. After a moment of hesitation, I agreed to see him at the park near the library on Wednesday. On Wednesday, I got to the park about 15 minutes early and picked a bench by the fountain. Nathaniel showed up at exactly 2, wearing sunglasses even though the sky was overcast. He gave me an awkward hug and thanked me for coming. He admitted he'd been struggling to figure out the right way to contact me. I pointed out a text would have worked just fine, and he confessed he wasn't sure I'd even write back. Taking off his sunglasses, he told me he saw something at my sister Anne's wedding last month. That threw me. "How were you at Anne's wedding?" I asked. "You weren't invited." He explained that his cousin Eugene is friends with Troy, Anne's new husband, and he was Eugene's +1. When I asked why he didn't come say hi, he revealed it was because he saw Sheila, my mother. I just shook my head and told him that was impossible. My mother wasn't at the wedding. She died when I was 12. Nathaniel insisted he knew what my mom looked like from old pictures, and the woman at table 8 was her. No question. I started getting upset, standing up and telling him he sounded insane. I explained that my mother was dead and that I literally went to her funeral. He asked if I ever saw her body. I told him it was a closed casket. She died in a car crash. As I grabbed my purse to leave, he called out. She looked right at me. She recognized me from when we were dating. I drove straight across town to Anne's place, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. She opened the door in her pajamas, even though it was the middle of the afternoon. I told her we had to talk about Mom, and went pale. "What about her?" she asked. When I told her Nathaniel said he saw Mom at the wedding, and poured herself a glass of water and said he had to be mistaken. I said that's what I thought too, but he seemed so certain. And sat down at her kitchen table and the truth started to come out. She didn't die in that accident. Dad made it all up. They were getting divorced, and she just left us. Dad couldn't face that reality, so he told us she died. I couldn't process it. "But there was a funeral," I said, and explained it was an empty casket and that Dad had paid off the funeral director to play along. I walked out without saying another word. I just drove, not really going anywhere, until I ended up at my dad's house. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and knew. He knew and had told me. When I asked him how he could lie about something like that, he just invited me inside. "Your mother left us for another man," Dad said quietly. "I thought it would be easier for you girls to think she died a hero than to know she chose to leave." When I started asking about all these years, he admitted he never thought she'd actually come back, and definitely not to Anne's wedding. I stayed with Dad for hours, asking a million questions about Mom, the lie, and what really happened. As the sun went down, I drove to the grocery store, just needing to be alone for a bit. I wandered the aisles, grabbing things I didn't need. As I turned into the dairy section, I froze. A woman with familiar eyes was looking at the yogurts. She was older with different hair, but it was unmistakably my mother. Okay, first update. I posted about finding out my mom, who I thought was dead, is actually alive. And wow, the comments absolutely exploded. One person told me to get a lawyer. Another said to check if I was even legally my dad's kid. What? And about 50 people just told me to run. Our eyes locked at the exact same moment. Her hand froze mid-air, hovering over a container of Greek yogurt. For a solid 10 seconds, we just stared at each other like two deer caught in the headlights. Then she put the yogurt down, adjusted her purse, and started walking toward the exit. I followed her. Not in a creepy stalker way, but I literally had to jog to catch up. I called out, "Mom!" She stopped but didn't turn around. When I got closer, I could see her shoulders were shaking. She finally turned, and I got a real look at her face. The same green eyes I see in my own mirror every morning. The same slightly crooked nose, but older now, with lines around her mouth I didn't recognize from the old photos Dad had stashed in the attic. She asked how I was doing, and I let out this weird hysterical laugh that made a few shoppers turn to look. I told her I was doing fantastic. "Thanks for asking. Just found out my dead mother has been alive for the last 13 years. So, yeah, everything's peachy." She flinched. Then she suggested we go somewhere we could talk. I thought about saying no, about just walking away and letting her feel what it's like to be abandoned. But I needed answers more than I needed revenge. We wound up at a 24-hour diner, the kind with sticky menus and a waitress who calls everybody honey. We slid into a booth in the back. She ordered a coffee. I ordered a Coke because I wasn't about to pretend this was some casual catch-up. She started by saying she had no idea I'd be at the wedding, and I cut her off, telling her and invited her. She nodded, explaining that Troy's mother had sent the invitation to her current address months ago, and she debated for weeks before finally going. Current address. Like she was just living somewhere this whole time, close enough to get mail about my sister's wedding. I asked where. "Harrisburg," she said. "Harrisburg. An hour-and-a-half drive." For 13 years, she'd been just an hour and a half away. She told me she understood I was angry. No, I said. I really don't think you do. I told her I cried myself to sleep for 2 years thinking she was dead. I told her I kept her picture under my pillow until I was 15. I told her dad had to put me in therapy because I kept having nightmares about car crashes. That's when she started crying. Real, ugly tears. The waitress brought our drinks and backed away like she could sense the emotional minefield. My mother said she never meant for any of this to happen, that it was all supposed to be temporary. She explained she left dad because he was controlling, because she felt smothered, because she just needed space to figure herself out. She claimed she was planning to come back for us, for me and Anne. When? I asked. She went quiet. Finally, she admitted she was thinking about it, maybe 6 months after she left. But dad told her if she ever tried to contact us, he would make sure we'd never want to see her again. He'd tell us she left for drugs, for some other guy, for money. He said he would turn us against her so completely that she just gave up. That's it. I asked. You just accepted it and moved on? She insisted she never moved on and revealed she kept tabs on us through mutual friends. She knew when I graduated high school, when and got into nursing school, when I got my first real job. She showed me her phone. It was full of photos, pictures of me from Facebook, from Instagram, from Anne's public posts. Years of photos she'd been saving like some creepy digital scrapbook. It was both sad and infuriating. I asked about the man dad said she left for. Her face shifted. She confirmed there was someone. His name was Timothy, a guy from her work. They'd been having an affair for about 4 months before she left. So at least dad hadn't lied about everything. She quickly added that it didn't work out with Timothy. It was over within a year. She said that looking back, she'd made horrible choices, that she was selfish and stupid and young. She was 32 when she left. Not exactly a teenager. But then it got even messier. She told me she tried to reach out once, when I was 16. She sent a letter to our old house, but dad sent it back, unopened. She tried calling from a blocked number, but he recognized her voice and hung up. She said she even drove by my high school one day, but saw me laughing with my friends and decided I looked happy enough without her. You don't get to make that decision, I told her. You don't get to decide from a car window if I needed my mother. She agreed. She said she was a coward, and that watching and get married, seeing how beautiful and grown up she was, and seeing me in the family photos on Troy's mom's Facebook, it broke something inside her. She realized she'd lost 13 years she could never, ever get back. I asked if she had other kids. She said no. I asked if she was married. No. What the hell have you been doing for 13 years? I asked. She said she'd been working as a secretary, living alone in a one-bedroom apartment, and regretting every single day of her pathetic life. The bitterness in her own voice made me think maybe she wasn't lying about the regret. We sat there for at least 2 hours. She told me about her life in Harrisburg, about her cat named Buttons, about volunteering at a food bank, like these small details could somehow patch up the giant hole she left. I asked if Anne knew she was alive before the wedding. My mother hesitated, then admitted that Anne had reached out to her 3 years ago. 3 years. And had been in contact with her for 3 years and never said a word to me. I shot up from the booth so fast I knocked my Coke over. The waitress rushed over with a stack of napkins. I threw some cash on the table and walked out. My mother called my name, but I just kept walking. I drove straight to Anne's, not caring that it was almost 10 p.m. I banged on her door until she finally opened it. She took one look at my face and knew. She tried to explain, saying Mom had found her on Facebook, that she was scared and confused and didn't know how to tell me. She claimed she was trying to protect me from being hurt all over again. I asked her how having secret phone calls with our supposedly dead mother for 3 years was protecting me, and started crying, saying Mom had begged her not to tell me until she was ready. Ready for what? I yelled. To just swoop back into our lives whenever it was convenient for her? And then revealed that Mom had been asking about me constantly, what I was up to, if I was dating anyone, if I seemed happy, and said she'd been giving her updates because it just felt too cruel not to. I told and that what really felt cruel was lying to my face for 3 years. Every time we had dinner, every holiday, every single time I get sad and mention Mom, and knew the whole truth and said nothing, and grabbed my arm, saying I didn't understand the position she was in. She explained Mom was fragile, that she'd been in therapy, that she had tried to end her life. Twice. After leaving us. And was terrified that if she told me and I rejected Mom, she would try again. So I was just supposed to fake a happy reunion to keep our mother from hurting herself? That's emotional blackmail. And swore that wasn't what she meant, but I was done listening. I told her I needed space and left. When I got home, there was a text from Nathaniel asking if I was okay. He'd heard from Eugene that I'd been asking questions about the wedding. News travels fast, I guess. I called him. I just needed to talk to someone who wasn't lying to me. He picked up on the first ring. I asked him to tell me exactly what he saw. He described sitting with Eugene at table 12 when he noticed a woman at table 8 who looked familiar. He thought maybe he knew her from college, but then he remembered the pictures I used to keep in my dorm room, the one of my mom holding me as a baby. The way she had a smile that was both shy and a little sad. This woman had the exact same smile. He said he mentioned it to Eugene, who told him, "Oh, that's Sheila. Troy's mom invited her." Apparently, they had been friends years ago. Eugene didn't make the connection to me until Nathaniel explained it. I asked him why he waited 3 years to tell me. He said he didn't. He tried to bring it up casually the week after the wedding, but I had been weird and distant with him then. We broke up 2 months later, and he figured it just wasn't his place anymore. Fair enough. Then he asked if I had talked to her yet. Yeah, I did, I said. He asked how it went. Honestly, I told him, I have no idea. Part of me wants to tell her to stay in Harrisburg and leave me alone forever. Another part of me has a million more questions. He said that made sense and that he was there if I needed to talk. It was nice. Uncomplicated. No hidden agendas. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Anne and a voicemail from Dad asking me to call him back urgently. I called Dad first. He asked if I'd seen her, and I said yes. There was a long, heavy silence on the line. Then Dad said something I never expected. He told me Sheila had called him last night. After 13 years, she'd called him and said she wanted to be a part of our lives again. She wanted to make amends. She wanted a relationship with her daughters. And Dad, he'd told her no. He said he'd let her see and if that's what and wanted, but that she needed to stay away from me. He told her I was doing just fine without her and that she'd already caused enough damage. I asked him who the hell gave him the right to make that decision for me. He went quiet. Then he said he was just trying to protect me, like he always had. I told him his protection had been a lie for 13 years and hung up. Now everyone is trying to control this. Dad wants to keep her out and wants to stage a perfect reunion. Mom wants a second chance, but nobody is asking the one question that matters. What do I want? I'm getting there, though. I'm figuring it out. Because there's something else. Something I haven't told anyone yet. When I was leaving the diner that night, I saw someone in the parking lot. It was the guy in the blue jacket from Costco, standing by a silver car, just watching the diner. And as I drove past, I got a clear look at his face. He looked exactly like my mother. Final update. Okay, the comments on my last post were insane. Half of you were convinced the guy in the blue jacket was a PI, and the other half thought I was officially losing it. The morning after I saw him, I called my mother and told her we needed to talk, immediately. She asked if she could bring someone with her, and I just said, fine, whatever. An hour later, she was at my apartment with Sydney. He was tall for his age and looked so nervous I was worried he might actually pass out on my doorstep. The first thing he said to me was, sorry for being a creep. He explained he'd been trying to work up the nerve to introduce himself for weeks but kept chickening out. The day at Costco, he'd finally decided this was it. But then that older woman called him out, and he panicked. I asked my mother to explain, and she told me everything. She'd had Sydney 2 years after she left us. His father, Ronald, took off when Sydney was just a baby. She raised him all by herself in Harrisburg, which again, is only a 90-minute drive away. 90 minutes for 13 years. But here's the thing. As she was talking, I was watching Sydney's face. He looked just as lost as I felt. This wasn't some evil scheme. These were just broken people who'd made a mess and were trying to figure out how to clean it up. I asked Sydney what he wanted out of all this. He said, honestly, I just wanted to meet my sisters. He'd grown up hearing about us, seeing old pictures, knowing we existed out there somewhere but never being allowed to meet us. He said it felt like having ghost siblings. Something about the way he said that just hit me, because I'd had a ghost mother, and it sucked. He had ghost sisters. We'd all been haunted by people who were very much alive. I called and told her to get to my apartment now. She showed up 20 minutes later, and when she saw Sydney, her eyes went wide. I introduced them, and just stared for a solid minute before finally saying, holy crap, we have a brother. Sydney let out a nervous laugh and said, yeah, surprise. And then launched into a million questions. Where did he go to school? What grade was he in? Did he play sports? It was like she was in full nurse mode, trying to assess and organize and make sense of this new reality. We ordered Chinese food and sat on the floor around my coffee table, eating lo mein and asking Sydney about his life. He told us he was a sophomore in high school, loved video games and basketball, and had always wished he had siblings. My mother was quiet through all of it, barely eating, just watching the three of us talk. At one point, I saw tears in her eyes, and she quickly wiped them away and apologized, and asked her why she came to the wedding, knowing she could be seen. Our mother explained she'd be and invited by Troy's mom, an old friend. She debated it for months but said she just wanted to see us as adults, even if it was just from across a room. She planned to stay in the background, but then Nathaniel recognized her. I asked Sydney if he knew about us his whole life, and he said yes. Our mother had told him when he was little that he had 2 older sisters she couldn't see. He'd asked why a million times, and she'd always just said it was complicated, that she'd made mistakes she couldn't take back, and asked if our mother had been a good mom to him. Sydney got quiet for a moment. Then he said she'd tried her best, but that she was sad a lot. He said there were days she could barely get out of bed, that she worked all the time to provide for him, but emotionally, she was just somewhere else. Our mother started crying harder then. She said she was sorry, that Sydney deserved better, that we all deserved better. She said she'd spent 13 years living with what she did, and it had eaten her alive from the inside out. And got up and hugged her. Just like that, no hesitation. She said, we can't change the past, but maybe we can figure out the future. I wasn't there yet, not even close. But watching and hug our mother while Sydney sat there looking like he might cry too, I felt something shift inside me. These were my people. Broken and messy as hell, but they were mine. Over the next few weeks, Sydney became a regular part of our lives. Our mother would drive him down from Harrisburg on the weekends, and we'd just hang out. We went to a Phillies game. We tried an escape room. We just did normal sibling stuff, and it felt strangely natural. Our mother would join us sometimes. It was awkward at first. None of us really knew how to act. But slowly, we started to learn who she actually was, not just the ghost we remembered or the monster we'd imagined. She told us about her secretarial job, her apartment with her cat, Buttons, and how she volunteered at a food bank on Saturdays because helping others made her feel a little less guilty. And finally asked her about leaving Dad, and our mother told us the whole story. She said Dad had been controlling, wanting to know where she was and who she was with every second of the day. She felt like she couldn't breathe. It didn't excuse her leaving us, but it started to make more sense. She said she met Timothy at work, and he made her feel valued. She had an affair, and when Dad found out, the marriage just imploded. She left, planning to just get some space, but Dad gave her an ultimatum. If you want out, you're all the way out. She panicked and she ran. By the time she calmed down enough to think straight, Dad had already told us she was dead. When she tried to contact him, he threatened to make us hate her. I asked her why she believed him. She said it was because he was so full of rage, and she was so full of shame. She convinced herself we were better off. Sydney told us he'd found letters she'd written to us over the years. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, just letters about her life. She wrote them but never sent them, just kept them in a box in her closet. Our mother brought that box to Anne's one weekend. Inside were years of unread letters, cards for birthdays she'd missed, little gifts she'd bought but never given, and photos she'd collected of us from afar. Reading them broke something in me. I could feel her pain in every single word. She hadn't forgotten us. She hadn't moved on. She'd just been trapped by her own grief for 13 years. One letter for my 16th birthday said she'd driven by my high school that day and seen me laughing with friends. She wrote that I looked so happy and beautiful, and that maybe she'd made the right choice by staying away. I cried reading that, because I hadn't been happy. I'd been performing, trying to be okay for everyone, while inside I was still that 12-year-old girl who'd lost her mom. And I decided we needed to talk to Dad. Not to attack him, but to help him understand. We invited him for dinner at Anne's. When he walked in and saw our mother sitting on the couch, he froze. And just said, "We asked you here to talk. All of us. Like adults." Dad sat down stiffly. I told him we'd been spending time with Mom and Sydney and that we were starting to see her side of things. I said we weren't excusing what she did, but we were trying to understand it. Dad said there was nothing to understand. She abandoned her family. Our mother shot back that she'd left a toxic marriage and was then threatened into staying away. Dad said that was a lie. He'd only threatened to tell us the truth about her cheating. Sydney asked, "What truth?" Dad said that she was a cheater who chose another man over her own kids. Our mother admitted she'd had an affair but said she wanted to try to work things out, and Dad refused. He gave her an ultimatum. His way or the highway. Dad said that wasn't how it happened at all. They argued back and forth until and finally yelled for them to stop. She said it didn't matter who was right about what happened 13 years ago. What mattered was what we did now. I told Dad I loved him and that I was grateful for everything he did raising us. But I also told him that he lied to us, and that lie had hurt me in ways I was still figuring out. I said I needed him to accept that Mom was going to be a part of our lives. Dad looked at me for a long time. Then he asked if that was really what I wanted. I said yes, and said yes too. He asked about Sydney, and I told him Sydney was our brother, and we wanted a relationship with him. Dad slowly nodded and said, "Okay, I'll try." Our mother said she wasn't asking for his forgiveness, or even for him to talk to her. She just wanted a chance to know her daughters and for her son to know his sisters. Dad said fine, but he couldn't be around for it. He'd respect our choice, but he couldn't watch her play happy family after everything. That stung, but I got it. Some wounds don't just heal because you want them to. Over the next couple of months, things started to feel more normal. Sydney and our mother came to Philly more often. The four of us, me and Sydney and our mother, started having regular Sunday dinners. Sometimes at my place, sometimes at Anne's, sometimes at that diner halfway between our cities. That became our spot. Our mother told us stories about her childhood. Sydney told us about growing up in Harrisburg, and told stories about trying to be a second mom to me when she was only 15. And I told them about the nightmares, about being scared to love anyone because they might just disappear. One Sunday, our mother brought an old photo album. Pictures of us as babies, as toddlers, family photos from before it all went wrong. Sydney stared at them, trying to memorize a past he was never a part of. There was one picture of all of us at the beach, Mom, Dad, and me, all smiling. Our mother said that was the last good day she remembered. 3 months after that first meeting, my mother asked if she could meet Nathaniel to thank him. She said if he hadn't spoken up, we might never have found our way back to each other. I called Nathaniel, explained everything, and he was happy to meet her. We all had lunch together. Me, Nathaniel, Mom, and Sydney. After, and pulled me aside and said she wanted to try something crazy. She wanted to plan a family barbecue and invite both Mom and Dad. In a public park with other people around, maybe they could just be civil. The day of the barbecue, I was a wreck. But then Sydney texted me, "We can do this. It's time to try." Dad showed up first. Then Mom arrived with Sydney. They just looked at each other from across the park for a long minute before Dad walked over. He didn't hug her, but he said hello. They talked. He told her about his new woodworking hobby. She said she'd always wanted to learn. It was stiff, but it was a start. As the sun set, our mother stood up and said she knew she dirt everyone. She said she was sorry for leaving, for staying away, for all the lost years. Dad didn't say he forgave her, but he said that life was too short to stay angry forever, and for our sake, he was willing to try to move forward. Last week was me birthday, and for the first time in 13 years, my mother was there. She baked me a cake chocolate with raspberry filling, my favorite when I was a kid. The fact Thatcher remembered made me cry. We took a family photo that day. Dad, Mom, and Troy, Sydney, and me. It's the first picture of all of us together since I was 12. I have it on my fridge now. Sometimes I just look at and can't believe this is my life, that my dead mother I live, that I have a brother, and that me broken family is slowly, messily, piecing itself back together. And to that older woman in Costco, if you're somehow watching this, thank you. You saw something weird and you said something. You had no idea the chain of events you were about to set off, but because you spoke up, it get me mother back. Anto Evrio Nuho commented, "Thank you for coming along on this insane ride with him."